The picture on the right is a lot sloping away from the house. Ideally, this is what you want, but obviously not always possible. The best thing you can do is stand at the edge of your lot and look at the overall topography. Is it level or inclined? If it's inclined, are there any gentle or steep slopes present? This can definitely be the cause of all the water that accumulates around your house. If the land slopes downward from the street to your house may be vulnerable to drainage problems as well. As you walk around the house, look at the ground immediately against the foundation. It should be sloping away from the house on all sides. Otherwise, surface water can run directly to the foundation and seep down along the foundation walls. In winter, this water freezes and thaws repeatedly and causes a hydrostatic pressure on your foundation walls. To regrade this area, the lawn should slope 8 to 10 feet away from the house. We want the landfill to drop about 1 inch for every foot. So suppose we want the slope to go 8 feet away from the house. At the foundation, the dirt should be 8 inches high. For every foot away from the house, the dirt drops 1 inch until you reach 0. Over time, the slope of the ground changes, so check it periodically. If there is a body of water present on your property, there will always be a potential for flooding. Look at the channel for any obstructions, such as fallen trees, large branches, trash, or sediment. Next, we will be looking for natural drainage ways. Does it require a swale and ridge? If there is a large bank, would it be beneficial to install a retaining wall? If ponds form in low-level areas of your yard, try to determine the cause. It could be a faulty septic system, a faulty sewer hookup, or even a break in the house's main water supply. If you already have drains installed around the house structure, check them to see that there are no obstructions at the outlet locations. These can often be blocked by trash, animals, and unfinished landscaping projects. Here we have 3 different styles of retaining walls. The top picture is obviously wood with some rot and decay issues. The picture on the bottom left is referred to as a dry stone wall because there is no mortar present. The picture on the bottom right is referred to as a wet stone wall, and you can see the obvious cracks from years of freezing and thawing water that accumulates behind the wall. When looking at a retaining wall, we are observing its overall condition. Some walls may be completely covered with vines. Try to push these aside, but make sure you're not messing with something like poison ivy. With timber, railroad tie style, or dry stone walls, we're going to look for missing, loose, or crumbled sections. We'll also check timber for cracked, rotting, loose, or heaved sections. With concrete, block, or whetstone walls, check for cracked or heaved sections, as shown in the bottom right. Also verify that weep holes are present. These are holes located at the base of the retaining wall that allow water that accumulates behind the wall to safely drain out. Without these, water would accumulate behind the wall and cause hydrostatic pressure pushing outward on the wall and eventually leading to collapse. And with mortar, you must repair loose, deteriorated, or missing joints periodically. Overall, stand on the side and observe. The wall should not be leaning forward. If the wall is leaning forward, some of the cracks or heaved sections may actually be relieving some of the pressure. However, any additional forces can eventually lead to collapse. And if there are large splits, the wall should be rehabilitated or rebraced again. And when dealing with the lawn, look for holes or any sunken sections that could pose a tripping threat. This is especially important if you have any kids running around or your family does a lot of yard activities. If there are potential hazard zones, you should definitely fill them in. Also, you may live in an area that has moles or other rodents that burrow in your yard. These animals hunt for food underground and in the process create soft ridges in your lawn. Call a pest specialist to see if there's any remedy for this. If you live on a very steep slope, you know as well as anybody that your yard is difficult to mow. Some yards have terrace steps leading up to the house, as shown in the picture on the top right. Observe these for cracked, loose, or deteriorated sections. Also look for height variations between the steps. This can be a tripping hazard. Also, from a safety and insurance perspective, if there are more than 2 steps, you should have some type of handrail present as shown in the bottom right picture. Next, take a look at the trees present in your yard. In this picture, we see power lines running through and in between the branches of the tree. This will obviously be a safety concern. When you have a dead tree or large dead branches, they are vulnerable to becoming homes to insects, such as termites or decay fungus. A conifer or cone-bearing tree, like a Christmas tree, is easier to determine if dead than a deciduous tree, the trees that produce leaves. A good rule of thumb to use is that if any of the limbs have their bark missing or peeled off, assume the branch is dead. Also, if there are any limbs overhanging or resting on the roof of your house, they should be pruned back, and this should be done by a specialist. Next, we'll look at the shrubs, and chances are they're planted very close to the house itself. If you purchase a newly built home, you may have shrubs planted very close together to produce an immediate effect. In this case, we're going to look for overcrowded sections, dying sections, blocked walkways, and blocked steps. And finally, we'll look at your fences. The picture on the top right is a fence on the verge of collapse. This is obviously not living up to its full potential for security. The picture on the bottom right is a fence in a heavily shaded area, and as you can see, there's heavy algae growth because of moisture and darkness. The picture on the bottom left is only a hole in the fence, yet fixing this will only increase the value of the fence on the property. Inspect wood for rot, loose, or missing sections. Inspect metal fences for rust, loose, or deteriorated sections. And remember, rust can always be scraped, primed, and painted over again.